Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I start off my drawings, so the outline and how to judge tones and colours, and some good tips to help you out. And I thought my next commission here was an ideal candidate because he's like a Jack Russell breed. He's got white tummy, white chest and a white stripe down the middle, and then he has like beige, browny, orangey fur on the outside. Now, the first tip I'm going to give you is the paper that you're going to use and the colour. It can be really difficult with light coloured dogs to spot the tones within it, so the lights and the darks and the mid-tones can be rude because our eyes just see like, oh, it's a light dog, let's just draw with light colours. But that can end up looking really flat if you don't have a clear source of light and the shadows to match that source of light. It's going to give it much more of an impact. But yeah, this grey toned paper, I think it's a dark grey by Pastelmat. It just gives you a really nice mid-tone colour to compare your colours to, rather than comparing it to the white colour next to it, which is going to make everything really difficult to judge. Right, second tip is how I get down my initial outline. Let me just get my laptop. So this is my Microsoft Surface Book laptop. It's the 2nd edition. It's really good for doing your outlines digitally. The reason I do it digitally is because you've got a really good comparison to your reference picture. As you can see, it's actually a laptop. And you can like detach the screen and turn it around and stuff like that. It's a perfect laptop if you're looking for a new one and you want to do this kind of thing, because there's another edition that's come out now, and the price of this one, you can get it second hand for really cheap now. Well, not really cheap, but it is an investment. I don't know what I'd do without this now. But yeah, I use my pen on Photoshop and I just create an outline like this. And the pros to doing it this way, you're not having to, rub out all the lines and stuff. If you were to take a graphite pencil, for example, go straight onto your Pastelmat, it's not going to work, because every time you make like an indent or you have to rub something out, you're just damaging the tooth of that paper and the texture of Pastelmat. So yeah, so we got the line drawing here. This is what I do, for example, and I've purposely just included the details that I want to include in the drawing. So the bits that I know I'll get stuck on, like this fur direction, I've included lots of detail there. So that you just don't panic when it comes to actually drawing it. You've got that information there and ready to go. And once I have done that, I tape it to one of these trace down papers. These are really good brand. They're a white colour, so they show up really well on the dark Pastelmat. And the reason I would suggest using these rather than the darker ones is when you're drawing like light coloured fur, I used to just use the dark coloured one. But I found that sometimes it would just smudge with a darker colour and it would look quite muddy, and you just don't want that really. So I started using the white one for light coloured dogs, and it's so much easier now. So yeah, I will insert the process of transferring the outline here. So as you can see here, I'm just using a purple coloured biro. It's handy to use a pen that is a different colour to your lines. It's just so you can see which bits you've done and which bits you haven't. You'll see me occasionally lifting this up as well, just to check that it's being transferred clearly. And I was pretty happy with the outcome. Here is my lovely reference picture. Thought I'd just include this in case you're relatively new to drawing or seeing tones. The human eye sees something like 1,000,000 tones, and as artists we have to take it down to just, well, I like to use the 10 value system. Some artists use less or more, but this is really handy if you're starting out and you're just getting used to seeing tones and stuff, especially in white dogs. It can be hard. So let me just get I printed off this second line drawing for you, and all we're going to do, so in Photoshop you can always mess with the levels here, so you can take it, it's basically just brightness and contrast. So we want the shadows to be visible but not too dark. And in the whites we need some information present, so don't blow out the whites so much where you can't see any of the fur direction. So I think that is a good, that's some good levels. And then what we do is make it black and white so the tones are easier to see. So that's image adjustments, hue saturation, and then just turn that saturation all the way down. So now we have our black and white image, and it being black and white is going to make it very much easier, a lot easier to see where our tones are. And here we can use our value scale. It's really hard to do on the laptop and in real life because obviously whichever direction you point it, it's going to look a bit different, but we're just going to do it roundabouts. And I've got a pen here. And I'm going to write on my drawing which number is in which area. Just a bit of pre-planning you can do, you don't have to do this at all, but it can just help inform the process as you go along. So in these white bits here, now I would say that they are, obviously it doesn't look like this on camera because it's going to look a different colour, but this is, yeah, I would say between 2 and 1, between the lightest and the second lightest. So in my drawing here I'm just going to put 2/1, and that is one of the lightest areas, so that is going to be the bright whites if you have any in your drawing. Right, so these eyes. Now I'd say they're definitely the darkest part as well as the nose in this drawing. So maybe, yeah, I reckon a 9 because it's not quite the darkest, so there's some shadows within them. So I reckon it's a 9 and a 10 in the shadow areas. So here we take this, wrong pen, and we put 9/10. Now let's do some of the shadows in the white fur on his chest. Oops. So I would say it really helps to squint your eyes when you're doing this as well. So if you squint your eyes as you're watching this, it'll probably make what I'm doing make more sense. You squint your eyes to see the tone and open them to see the colour is what I've learned. So I actually think that's around a 7. I think around a 6 or a 7 in those shadows. So I'm just going to write on the chest, in the shadow, pick up the right pen soon, in the shadows areas a 6/7, and then in those areas around that shadow it's probably around a 4, and then you've got the highlights on top in around a 3 or a 2. So 4, highlights 3/2, and we have this nose area, and that nose is going to be dark 9, and then it's got some shadows within that darkness, so it's going to be 9 and 10 again. One of the things that I really struggle with is not going overboard on the nose reflection, because it's like a really detailed area, you want to get all your skills in there. But in actual fact, it's really not that much lighter than the rest of the nose usually, unless it's really wet and the sun's shining on it. Then you can go to town with the details, but noses like this, the highlight is probably about an 8, so only a tone lighter. We'll say 8 or 7. So the highlight, 8/7. And on these ears, say so nowhere near the darkness of the eyes, so probably going to be a 7, maybe an 8, 7, no, I think around a 7 for the edge of those ears that are in shadow. So 7/8 in those shadowed ears. And for the side of the face, so we've got this side which is more in the light and this side which is in the dark. So this fur is going to be darker than this fur, even though our brain kind of says it's the same colour. So I'd say that's an 8 on that side. 8. And on this side, it's going to be around a 6. So that's 2 shades lighter on this side. Oh, and let's check those highlights in the eye. They're not bright white, as you can see. They're actually a little bit darker than that fur. So I'm going to say a 3 or a 4 for those highlights. 3/4. And last of all, we're going to do this mouth area. Slightly lighter than the nose, so we're going to say 8 for that. Although this bit's meant to be 8, so... okay, maybe that bit is actually more of a 7. Yeah, we'll change that bit to 7. And here is an 8 in the darkness around the mouth area. So this side has to be a little bit lighter. I think the top here is a 5. And then maybe that's a 4. I think that's between like a 4 and a 5. We'll go with 5. And then we can always change it when we go to draw it. But we need to just make sure that that area is definitely darker than that area. Otherwise it's just going to look flat and we don't want that. Right, last things last is here, these shadows here which show the structure of his face. And I think these are around, they're not quite as dark as this area here, which is a 7. So if we go to 7 here, and it's probably going to be I think the light areas here are a 5, and then the shadows within that light area is a 6, so that's the same as that. So 5 and 6 in the shadowed areas. And I think that's all we can do for now. And what I mean by squint to see the values and then open your eyes to see the colours. Right, let's go back, just undo that black and white filter. So now we can open our eyes again, we can stop squinting if you still will. And now we can kind of gauge which kind of colours we're going to be using. So let's open the colour swatch tool. And here I've got the colour picker selected. I think you probably know what that looks like, I can't really move the camera at the moment. And we're going to, so this was an area that was 7 tone, and as we can see here it is kind of in the darkest section, so that was pretty accurate. So here's like 0 to 5, and then here's like 5 to 10 in the darkness. So yeah, we got that pretty accurate, and that is a deep brown colour. It's very warm, very red. What we can do now is get our paintbrush tool and we can just pull that colour out. Oh, wrong colour. Yep, there's our deep reddish brown. So let's pull that colour out and then we can make a little swatch here. Oh, went a bit crazy there because I wasn't looking. So yeah, that just gives us a clearer image of what the colour actually is, because when it's next to all the other colours it can be really hard to judge. And let's just do that again on the top of this ear. I think this is going to be more of an orange. Yep, here we go. So it's kind of the same range of colour, but it's a few shades lighter as we expected. So let's drag that bit out. And now for the bit that's quite hard, it's the colour inside these ears, because it looks quite pink, but I think it's actually going to be more of a purpley grey. Let's have a look. Oh, so it is on the red side of the scale. It's like a really light flesh colour. So let's select that and pull that one out. Now let's do some bits up the top. Let's try this colour here. That's weird. It's quite similar to the ear actually, but it looks really cold to me. So let's just try and select a different area. I don't know if this shadow here. Are you cool or are you warm? Okay, so the bit that's up a bit is a bit cooler, but it is still on the warm side. So let's drag that up. And that's more of a pure grey, I suppose. But the shadow next to it down here is more flesh toned and beige. Now let's do this side. So here's the top of his head, and that is much more light orangey yellow. But as you can see, none of these are really that saturated. They're all quite muted. Now let's get right in the bottom of that ear because that looks quite dark. But in actual fact, it's just a shade lighter than that one. Now let's go for some of the darker areas. So in his eye here, let's open this, and this is surprisingly almost black. It's got some very slight deep brown and red tones. Pull that one out. Now let's do these highlights because we want to paint them white sometimes, but in actual fact they are light blue. Let's pull that out. Now let's check the other side because that might be a bit darker. It's quite hard selecting them when you're zoomed up. So yeah, actually, it's only a fraction darker than the other side, but that will make all the difference. And here, on the side of the ear, we've got more dark brown. And let's check the highlighted bit. And you can just keep going like this throughout your whole drawing, and if you can have this nearby you just to check for reference as you go, it can be really helpful because you can get lost in which colours are where, how light or dark they are. So doing both these things can really help you if you're just getting used to the process. Now let's look at the nose colour. Pretty much black there. But then so this is like a, the actual nose itself is kind of like a... Sorry guys, I think my camera must have cut out there, but I think you got a general gist of what I was doing and where I was going with that. I basically then just have that piece of paper with the numbers on it next to where I'm working. As you can see here, I'm just using it to lean my hand on so I don't get smudges on the paper. But yeah, I hope you got something from this video. The footage I'm showing now is from my previous video of the same drawing, which shows you how I use solvents with colour pencils in order to achieve a kind of smooth and layered appearance on these ears. So go check that video out if you haven't seen it already. And thank you so much, I just wanted to say to all my new subscribers. I didn't think I'll get any on YouTube, to be honest, so 272 is good for me. Have a lovely day everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.